We're going to talk about a song that I really like this song a lot. It's called The Revolution Is Televised, and I liked it so much that I guess I made it kind of the lead single, but you know, if you've been paying attention so far, I made it different than other singles. Um, Put it on Bandcamp, the artwork, PDF booklet, and all that stuff with it. But made two like instrumental versions of this song. One just simply being the one without vocals whatsoever, and then the other instrumental being the trippy version with the ambient guitar line, bass, and drums, and that's it. And I wanted to do something a little different with this song in that regard to kind of show some of the process or whatever. So we'll get into the overview, and we'll, as usual, talk about the music first. And I'm not narcissistic enough to, be like, this is the greatest song I've ever written. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. That I think it's one of the greatest I've ever written. Just from a personal standpoint, like everything about the song pretty much hits me the way I want it to. But it's far from flawless, far from perfect. I know all my guitarist friends probably listen to it and think he needed to dampen his strings. Like you can hear like residual string vibration stuff, whatever they call it, during like the first, I guess, breakdown. Like I hear it, so I know like all my guitarist buddies would hear it, but I'm not going to dampen that guitar because it's a Floyd Rose. I mean, if you're like a guitarist buddy of mine watching this and you're like, bro, here's a way to dampen your strings without like, taking away from playing open strings or, whatever, like, hey, I'm listening, like, hit me up. But I can't really think of a good way to dampen guitar strings that way, so I let it through. Like sometimes, like when I hear it, I'm like, well, there's something more real about that when you can hear the strings kind of rattling. But it isn't professional, so like I understand that much. I understand, there's probably a couple of strokes, guitar wise that don't exactly fit. Like production choices, vocal stuff, like you can just keep listing off stuff like that, but even still, just something about this song hits. Like I think any artist will tell you, that there's certain songs on any album they produce that they're like, oh, that's my favorite one to play live, or that just turned out better than I expected. And there's songs on every album that you're like, do I really like that song? Could I have done better? I think at this point overall, every song on this album, you know, I like it. But I know, a year from now, I'll probably like listen back and be like, I don't know about that. I mean, case in point, when I released Volume 2, like a year ago, I was like, this is some of the best shit I've come up with. Well, I like listened to, I think I listened to the entire album like a week and a half ago. First time I've really listened to any of those songs in a year. And honestly, I was like listening back now, I'm like, okay, I know that was a step in the right direction, but I don't know. And so, hopefully a year from now, 2 years from now, however long, I'll listen to Volume 5 and be like, I've progressed a lot, production's better, blah, 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 blah. But, for the time being, especially this song, I just love it. And, sorry for rambling about that, but, it happens. So how this song came about, I mean, honestly, when I started this album, I knew how I wanted it to begin, and I knew how I wanted it to end, and I knew a couple of things that I wanted to, touch on, talk about, whatever, in between the two extremes. And this is one of those songs, like when it comes to the personal meaning, this was something that I wanted to deal with. But yeah, I knew this is a glorified way of me saying that this was always going to be a song that, like, I was going to write, at least from a lyrical standpoint. And mind you, I did the music first, did, the lyrics months after I recorded this song. But it was always going to exist in some form. And, likely tell, the, like, literal form of the story that it was going to tell, that it does tell. And also that I always figured that this song would get super, super heavy and aggressive at some point, towards the end of the song. Like, I always figured that one out. But this is one of those songs, I guess I could say this for every song, that if you don't sit down with your guitar or, trying to program drums or whatever at that, like, certain moment in time, then, the entire song could potentially change. You write completely different guitar parts altogether. But this is one of those songs that, like, musically, if I hadn't done what I did, this song would be probably night and day different. And I probably wouldn't be so fond of it. Basically what happened was, it was probably a Friday night, maybe a Saturday night. I was, working on music. Worked, I think, most of the afternoon. I think I worked out earlier that day. Got dinner, that sort of thing. But, most of the late afternoon and pretty much all of the evening, I was recording Nepenthe and The Greatest Rebellion, back when it was like one song, I just re-recording guitar parts and laying down bass lines and stuff like that was what was happening. Already had like the drums and everything for it, so it was just re-recording the guitar parts for really those two songs, but they were one. So I finished it, did all the stuff that I was going to do with those two songs, and I looked at the clock and it was only like, I don't know, 10:30 at night. And then, it was one of those like simple moments where you have a simple choice of, well, it's getting late, I haven't slept that much, worked in the morning, got off, maybe got a few hours of sleep, and, been at it all day. I deserve a break. I deserve to, I figured it would have taken me another hour and a half. I was kind of expecting to be working till midnight sort of thing, and then, okay, now I'll go to bed and it's been a long day sort of thing. But, I nailed it, and, I was finished early and thinking, well, I could watch some TV or something before I go to bed, but already had everything plugged up and whatnot, so I was just like, okay, I'll just spend another 20-30 minutes just doodling around on my guitar. I'm already plugged in, don't want to do anything serious. I wasn't meaning to write anything or just nothing like that. I just wanted to doodle around because, it was like, it's that or watch TV before I go to bed. So instead of just wanting to, play runs or anything like that, I was just in a mood to just do some more like ambient sort of stuff. Like, I didn't want to do anything serious, like for real. I didn't want to like play blues scales or anything like that. I just wanted to just kind of do something mindlessly while, still being semi-productive, I guess. Just practicing, And so I just turned on a bunch of guitar effects, stacked delays on delays and reverse delay and probably some phase shifter, and I don't even remember what all. Probably hit my distortion stomp box and just started messing around, just doing like simple hammer-ons, hammer-offs, just da 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 da, and meanwhile I'm listening to my earphones or whatever connected to my DAW. And I was like, hold up, okay, this kind of slaps. What am I doing here? Okay, I'm just doing this. Maybe I could use this later on. This is cool. Hit record. Like, I'm 5 minutes into just doing some simple hammer-ons and just nothing spectacular at all, but just all the effects and stuff going all at once made it cool in my book. And if I could do one thing over with it, I would have lowered the gain on my DAW or whatever, because I didn't realize it at the moment, but it was kind of, because I have like so many effects going at once, and it's just messing with the wave, and I don't know, like these different phase shifters and you know, maybe there was like a flange or something on there. Like, you'll find that if they're not on the exact same time, which they rarely ever are, they can, it's like the waves cross, or whatever you want to call it, and it'll just make the volume, and maybe it's the low end if it's a phase shifter, or maybe it's the treble or something that'll just jump up like drastically by like negative 10 dBU or something. I mean, it'll just jump like that, and you know, maybe start clipping. That's the only thing I would change, because I, you know, can look back at the visual for the file now and, you know, be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was clipping at this point and this point, and, you know, but at the same time, that also, like, the fact that it does clip in the recording kind of makes it special as well. Like, it gives it this imperfect sort of quality to it that to me makes it endearing. But anyway, bunch of effects going. I'm plucking, hammer on, record one guitar line, you know, for like 5 minutes, hit stop. Okay, maybe I'll use that later, it's interesting. Start fiddling around again. Within like 2 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm hitting record again. This is pretty amazing, and it just happened over and over, like, I believe 4 times, to the point where I had like, I think 9 minutes of actual material that is just me like playing these lines over and over and over again, and, you know, had like my tap delay done to a like specific time that I think coincided with like a reverse delay that I was stacking it with. So that's how the song originally came about. Just me messing around on guitar late at night. I had these 4 guitar parts like in 30 to 40 minutes of just messing around, doing simple stuff. Like, there's nothing hard about what I was doing at all, but because of the effects loop, or effects, the way they're stacked, their order just sounds really cool in my book. So then did that, and meanwhile, you know, when I write something, come up with a guitar line or whatever, bass line, I always write it down. I always write down the effects that I'm using and stuff like that, so that, you know, later on I can go back and redo it. But when I recorded these parts, for once I said, no, I'm not going to do that. There's something special here. I don't want to be able to easily reproduce this. So the exact effects chain that I'm using, I mean, it's limited to, you know, what's on my pedal board and stuff like that, but I can't tell you exactly which of my delays that I was using. I mean, maybe I was using all of them. I can't even remember, because it was, you know, 10:30, 11, whatever at night. So, yeah, I don't remember. And like the exact hammer-ons or you know, a couple of the parts in the song, I'm like, I have no idea what it was. I, I don't know. I don't remember at all. I mean, I remember recording it, but I don't remember what like notes I was playing exactly or anything like that. And because it's all these weird effects, stacked on top of each other, it's not coming out exactly the way that it's actually being played, sort of thing. So, um, I could probably sit down and figure it out, but it would probably take a little while, even knowing like everything that I was doing was super simple. But it's one of those like examples that, hey, keep it simple, stupid sort of thing. Like it just works. It just works. So a few days after I recorded these, like 4 guitar parts, I went and pieced them together. Probably clicked and dragged, put them in different orders of where I thought in the moment where things would be. I don't know if I went on and did it then or probably later, but created the crossfades for them. But the main thing is, it started with this trippy guitar part, technically, and usually I would like try to write guitar lines to that, but I didn't do it that way. And in a lot of ways, I mean, the trippy guitar part I would record kind of later after I had like the main riffs and stuff like that. I recorded this. This is like the first song that I did practically in the opposite order of how I would usually write and record music. And that's also one of the reasons why this song means a lot to me, because I literally did everything backwards. Early on, like volume 1, okay, drums came last, but this song in particular, the drums actually came first. I didn't have, guitar lines or whatever written out before that. I decided, set up metronome, click track that coincided with the actual, trippy guitar part. It's like, okay, like it's very rhythmic. So, I made sure that it was pretty much the exact same BPM, everything lined up, and did all the drums based off of that so that it would, be on time and on par with the trippy guitar part. And that way too, like writing the drum parts first, actually set, like I pretty much let the drums actually set the pace and set the tone for the entire song. Like I knew I wanted there to be an like ending breakdown, just real chaotic, real weird kind of time signature stuff, and I didn't come up with that on guitar first. I let the drums do it, and then went back after that and filled in, guitar and bass. But when I wrote guitar and bass for this song, I already had the drums, and that was kind of like a first time for me. So that, yeah, I'm just really proud of how this song turned out because of that. So we'll talk about the literal meaning real quick. Luckily, don't have to spend too much time with it, because like like lyrically speaking, it's kind of a shorter song, not as dense word wise. Like I'm trying to get better with that sort of thing. And so every word's kind of a little more deliberate and meant to, tell the story and pack the punch to it. So this song, the speakers are the protagonist, of course, Lady Elm, Eugene, the Black Knight, and the Anchor, which we haven't seen the Anchor before this song. I mentioned him as a character earlier on, but the Anchor is simply just a news anchor on TV. Simple as that. So what happens is after the last song, the protagonist and Parson Brown leave the rooftop, return, deep inside the prison, kind of return to their section of the prison that they've taken over and where this church place is at. And I'd like to think, a couple of days, maybe a week has passed, and where this song picks up is the protagonist is in the church sanctuary, and he's just hanging out there, just for silence and calm, basically, just hanging out there, maybe praying, maybe he's just hanging out and just looking for peace. But then, out of nowhere, Lady Elm rushes inside the sanctuary and relays to the protagonist that she heard, war sounds and explosions coming from the streets outside the prison. Of course, being inside the prison, she couldn't see any of it happening, because she was like hanging out in the courtyard, the same courtyard from Lady Elm in a Courtyard from what was that, Volume 3. She's doing some gardening or something, starts hearing these explosions and stuff like that. So she's basically telling the protagonist, hey, shit's getting real in the outside in the city, and she's kind of scared. And then Eugene, her husband, enters, and he confirms that this is happening and says, come and look for yourself, because he found a room where there's a couple of like massive television sets. And so he leads them to the newsroom or whatever, where there's these TVs. And, the Black Knight is there too with them. And so a newscaster, the Anchor, comes on the air and warns them of the graphic content. And then they see, downtown in the city outside, a scene where people are being executed and people hanging from the gallows. And that's when the protagonist and the rest of them sees, which the rest of them wouldn't understand, know the significance, but for the protagonist, he knows who he's seeing, and it's, Aurora from Volume 1 and the very beginning of Volume 2. He hasn't seen her since he was put in this prison. And there she is on the television set, swinging dead at the gallows. She's been executed. And that's pretty much what the literal meaning of this song is. So, moving on, the fruit of the Spirit talked about here is peace. The Message rewords it as serenity. And, the word peace apparently comes from a Greek word, probably can't pronounce this right, but Eirene, so maybe Irene, that would be my guess. But it's the Greek equivalent for the Hebrew word shalom. So it's a word that expresses the idea of wholeness, completeness, tranquility in the soul, and being unaffected by outward circumstances and pressures. And this Greek form of the word apparently strongly suggests a rule of order, in place of there being chaos. So the amoral step that I came up with is the rejection of the value of life. So let's just talk about this song personally now. 80% of the lyrics here, the purpose is to propel the story forward. It's not necessarily invoking any personal emotional response from myself, but it's to get from point A to point B, so that the story itself can move forward to the eventual ending for volume 5. The only reference that I use in this song is the title itself, which references a couple of different things. Mainly, it's a song/poem by Gil Scott Heron called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised," which apparently that title was a popular slogan, in the 1960s with Black Power movements. And apparently there was a song by a group called The Last Poets called "When the Revolution Comes," which has a line that says, "When the revolution comes, some of us will probably catch it on TV." I named it this because civil rights movement era sort of thing. Yeah, we had television and all that, but it wasn't necessarily instantaneous, live, whatever. I mean, yeah, I guess it was in some respects, but everything's just immediate now because of the technology being where we're at. And that isn't a value statement, that just is what it is. So I wanted this song to focus more on the idea that so many people claim they want a revolution to happen. And the thing is, I wrote about war and revolution and stuff like that back in volume 1, so none of this is new. This is just it catching up to the prison and to the city where they're at. The protagonist has already seen it before. Hell, we already saw it to a lesser degree in volume 4, with the plague and all this happening. But this song is meant to invoke the question of, are we or the characters or whoever really ready for how far it'll likely be taken? because of technological advance, it will be televised. I mean, we've already seen that just in the last couple of years, right? Instantaneously, live. Sitting in your house and you're watching this stuff on TV. And the idea back in the 60s was it won't be televised because everybody will be outside participating, but that's just simply not reality. Is it a valid response to stand back and refuse to be involved? Is it? I mean, I guess it depends who you ask and what the movement, what the revolution is, but is it a valid response to just stand back and say, I don't know if this is the right thing to do? Is it? Is that privilege to have that right? I don't know. But what they're asking in this song in particular is, is this level of violence justified? So maybe it's about it becoming personalized when you see it affect someone or something you love around you versus it being, something just emotionally distant.